Hey fellow gamers, Chatty Sisa here. So, back in the day, when gaming magazines still came with CDs or DVDs, I picked one up that had a copy of Still Life on it. I didn't know anything about the game at the time. I've tried a few point-and-click adventures before, but most of them just didn't click with me, so I wasn't expecting that much. And then I started it, and the intro began. The music, the visuals, the mood. It instantly caught my attention. It was both masterful and creepy at the same time. And once I realized it was a detective story with grounded, realistic, mature themes, I was in. I've always loved crime, sci-fi and fantasy stories, especially when they're told well. And this game, despite being now 20 years old, made a strong first impression and kept me curious the whole way through. Considering its 20th anniversary, it seemed like the perfect time to revisit it and see how well it holds up in 2025. Still Life was developed and published by Microids, a studio known for their narrative adventure games, most notably the Siberia series. Released in North America in April 2005 and in Europe on the 3rd June 2005, Still Life quickly found its audience among fans of detective stories, puzzle solving and crime fiction. It's actually the second game in a trilogy. The first one was Post-Mortem in 2002, followed 3 years later by Still Life in 2005, and concluded with Still Life 2 in 2009 as the last game. While Post-Mortem first introduced Gustav McPherson, it used a first-person perspective with relatively clunky controls. I did try it myself, but it wasn't really a game for me, to be honest. Still Life 2, on the other hand, was a step backwards. It was overusing QuickTime events, forcing odd items combinations, and narrowing the locations basically to a single one and dragging the pacing. It was missing everything that made the original great, and fans didn't like this change. What made the first Still Life stand out, especially for the time, was its pre-rendered backgrounds, detailed settings, and a serious grounded crime story. It avoided the outlandish twists some adventure games fell into and focused instead on atmosphere, investigation, and character-driven storytelling. Critics were mixed at launch, but players were far more positive, praising the game's mood, puzzles, and especially the dual timeline concept. And for a smaller studio like Microids, the game actually sold quite well, over 240,000 copies by early 2006. At its core, Still Life is really two stories told decades apart, both involving a string of brutal murders and both centered on the McPherson family. You play as Victoria McPherson, an FBI agent investigating a serial killer in the early 2000s in Chicago. She discovers a journal written by her grandfather, Gustav, who was a private investigator in the 1920s in Prague. His case was also a serial killer, and the details are disturbingly similar. The game shifts between the two investigations, Victoria in the present and Gustav in the past, and lets you uncover both mysteries in parallel. It's a clever structure that does more than just tell two stories. It shows how obsession, corruption, and violence echo across generations. Each timeline has its own tone and style. Victoria's investigation utilizes, for example, modern forensic tools, including gadgets like small robots to navigate hazardous areas. Gustav's story is moodier, with shadowy alleys, corrupt officials, and a darker, more oppressive atmosphere. While not every twist is unpredictable, the pacing keeps you engaged, and the emotional weight builds over time, especially once you realize that not everyone you meet will make it to the end. The stakes are personal, and not everything wraps up neatly. One of the game's real strengths is the writing. Despite jumping between two different eras, the story flows naturally, and both timelines feel equally important and well developed. If you enjoy detective stories that treat their audience like adults, you're not afraid of mature themes, and you don't mind when things get a little grim, Still Life delivers something memorable. Let's look at the characters from the Chicago timeline first, as this is the location where you start. Victoria McPherson is a young FBI agent working the Chicago serial murders. She's smart, determined, and has a dry sense of humor, often cracking subtle jokes even during tense moments. Throughout most of the game, she's easy to connect with, but there's one scene towards the end where her reaction to a confrontation with her boss feels strangely out of character. It's just one moment, but it stands out as unusually abrasive compared to her more grounded behavior earlier. Victoria's partner in the Chicago investigation is David Miller. He's not the bravest when it comes to crime scenes, but he's supportive and well-meaning. David is not heavily involved in the later game, but he adds a bit of lightness early on and helps set the tone for Vic's day-to-day work. Claire Ashby is the pathologist working the case, and also one of Victoria's close friends. Their relationship feels natural, and there's some playful banter between them, like when Vic jokingly calls her Clarice in a full Hannibal Lecter voice. Claire's professionalism and warmth provide a nice counterbalance to the game's darker themes. Richard Valdez is Victoria's boyfriend who runs an art gallery that plays a small but notable role in the case. I won't spoil what part the gallery plays, but it's one of those side threads that ends up being more connected and more important than it first appears. As for the characters from the Prague timeline, we have to start with Gustav McPherson, who's Victoria's grandfather and the main protagonist in this part of the storyline. He's a private investigator with a calm and methodical style. His story leans more into noir territory, dark streets, unhelpful police, and shady suspects. He's a contrast to Victoria's modern tools and lab access, but his part of the story brings depth and atmosphere that really enrich the experience. Jiří Skalník is the Prague police chief who makes Gustav's job harder at every turn. He's dismissive, uncooperative, and clearly doesn't want Gustav asking too many questions. But there's more to his role than first appears. Players will want to keep an eye on him, especially as Gustav's investigation nears its end. And then there are the street ladies. Without giving too much away, Gustav's investigation takes him into the underbelly of Prague, where he gets help from several women working the streets. Their parts are short but impactful. Some of their stories are surprisingly emotional, and not all of them have happy endings. At its core, Still Life is a traditional point-and-click adventure game that focuses on exploration, puzzles, and item-based interactions. There are no quick-time events, and if you enjoy taking your time, this game respects that. You can take a break and come back to a puzzle when you're ready. However, some of the puzzles do require trial and error, and if you make a mistake, you'll have to start that particular puzzle over from the beginning. It's not punishing, but it can be frustrating at times, especially in puzzles like the lockpicking, which I'll be mentioning in the next segment. The puzzle variety is solid, ranging from simple object combinations like inserting film into a camera before using it, to more intricate challenges involving mechanical parts, movement sequences, and logic-based riddles. Many of the more complex puzzles appear later in the game and often give you multiple options or setups, though usually only one solution is correct. For example, there's a grid-based puzzle with ring placements, and another where you guide a robotic spider through a laser field using movement commands. These challenges are fun to figure out and rarely feel unfair. What's especially refreshing is that most puzzles feel grounded in the world and the story. If you're investigating a crime scene, you'll be using tools like cameras, swabs, or tweezers, not unlike some of the CSI games. If you're trying to infiltrate a suspicious location, you'll deal with locks, traps, or alarms. Everything has a purpose and fits the narrative context. The interface is simple and intuitive, with a helpful cursor system and automatic recording of important dialogues and documents. Everything from your inventory to the collected clues is stored in one easily accessible screen. The inventory does take up the full view when opened, but it's functional and easy to navigate after the first few uses. The game also does a good job of integrating these challenges smoothly into the story. The puzzles aren't just there to kill time, they're tied to what your characters are doing, whether it's unlocking a hidden compartment, interpreting old journal entries, or solving a code left behind at a crime scene. Each puzzle moves the story forward. Still Life uses pre-rendered backgrounds with fixed camera angles, a classic style for early 2000s adventure games. While the resolution and textures definitely show their age today, the environments are rich in detail and atmosphere. From blood-stained crime scenes in Chicago to riverside buildings and shadowy corners of 1920s Prague, each location feels distinct and thoughtfully designed. The Prague segments include some standout locations, like an old church that's been repurposed into a morgue. The riverfront setting adds a unique visual tone, and for a game released in 2005, the water effects look surprisingly good. Lighting plays a big role in establishing the mood. Dimly lit rooms and strategically placed shadows help reinforce the somber tone. It's not modern 3D, but it's atmospheric and effective. It's not high definition, but it does have style. And it uses that style well to create a mood that sticks. Character models are a bit stiff by today's standards, with limited facial expressions and sometimes awkward animations, especially during close-ups. But considering the time period, it's forgivable, and it doesn't detract too much from the experience. The real visual strength lies in how environments tell part of the story on their own. The intro music is a classical composition, and it's one of the game's standout features. The powerful chorus gives it an epic, almost cinematic quality, and it sets the tone perfectly from the very start. It's one of those rare tracks that stays with you long after the credits roll. The ambient sound design is another strong point. In the Chicago portions, the background hum of urban life or subtle sounds during puzzle solving help anchor you in each environment. In Prague, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. Creepy music kicks in when exploring the sewers, and the quieter, more subdued sounds reinforce the tension. The voice acting is generally solid. Victoria's voice performance carries most of the game and strikes a good balance between drive it and emotional depth. Gustav's lines, on the other hand, are delivered in a more subdued, almost noir-like tone, which fits his character and setting. Some minor characters can sound a bit flat or overacted, but overall the performances do the job and help sell the story. While the puzzle design is generally solid and well integrated, Still Life does have a few quirks that are worth pointing out, especially if you're the type of player who likes to avoid guides or spoilers. There are a couple of points, both in the Chicago and Prague timelines, where it's not immediately clear how to progress. The game doesn't hold your hand, and unless you're paying close attention to the dialogue or the journal entries, it's easy to miss a step. The story won't move forward unless you've triggered all the necessary clues. My advice to avoid getting stuck is to revisit previous locations within that chapter city and talk to everyone again, even if you think you're done there. Reading through the journal carefully also provides useful context and reminders that can point you in the right direction. Also, it helps to observe items and objects early, even if they're not usable yet. There are moments when an object in the environment is just there for commentary, but later in the story, that same object may become available for an interaction once the character needs it. So if you notice Victoria or Gustav making a remark about something the first time you visit a location, try to remember it. It might just become important later. And then there's the lockpicking puzzle, which deserves its own mention. It's one of the few challenges in the game that can really drive you crazy and can take some time of trial and error to get through. I'll be making a separate short guide for that one later if you'd rather avoid the full frustration. Not everything in the game is perfectly polished, but most of the bumps are minor. What stands out more is the atmosphere and the pacing. This isn't a high-action game, it's something you can relax into. Grab a coffee or tea, take your time with each scene, and enjoy a darker, more thoughtful kind of mystery. Despite being now 20 years old, Still Life holds up surprisingly well, especially if you enjoy mature, story-driven detective games. The dual timeline setup is compelling, the puzzles are logical and in line with the ongoing investigation, and the atmosphere remains one of the game's strongest points. The writing and the way the two timelines are handled is one of its strongest points, and while not every twist is surprising, the overall story keeps you hooked right to the end. Most of the gameplay is smooth and logical, though there are a few spots where progress can feel unclear and one or two puzzles may test your patience. In terms of playtime, the game takes around 6 hours to finish if you focus just on the main story. If you take your time, explore everything, and enjoy all the optional tasks, you're looking at around 7 to 10 hours depending on your playstyle. At the time of this review, Still Life is available on Steam and GOG for €7.99, and it's often part of a discounted trilogy bundle with Postmortem and Still Life 2 together. And during regular sales like the spring or summer sales, the game alone often drops to around €1.99, which is an absolute steal. If you like point-and-click detective games with a strong sense of mood, memorable settings, and layered storytelling, Still Life is absolutely worth your time, whether you're returning to it after all these years or discovering it for the first time. Let me know in the comments if you've heard about Still Life before, and maybe if you've already also played it. Was it one of your hidden gems, or did you just discover it a bit later? What do you think about the dual timeline story and the puzzles? Or did you prefer maybe one of the locations a little bit more than the other? I'm really looking forward to your comments on this one, and if this video helped you decide whether to play it or replay it, feel free to give it a like or share it with a fellow crime story fan. Thank you very much for watching, stay tuned and game on!